All right, check, check. What's up, everyone? This is Mick from Cambridge. Sorry for the delay. Had a little bit of trouble getting on here, but we are here. It's doing the Getting Started webinar for Photo Mechanic. How's everyone doing? I see I have a few people in the room. Thank you very much for attending. Again, sorry for the delay. Photo Mechanic Getting Started webinar. If you have any questions as we go along, certainly feel free to ask them in the chat. The way this is going to go down is I'm going to go through and describe Photo Mechanic, talk a little bit about what Photo Mechanic is, the basic ways some folks use it to ingest their images, and then I'm going to do a quick demonstration of an ingest and go through my workflow for how I would cull a session and talk a little bit about ratings, and then talk a little bit about how Photo Mechanic interacts with other editing programs like Photoshop or Photoshop Lightroom. Greetings, Daniel. Thank you very much. I see you in the chat there. Good to see you. So, all right, we're looking here at Photo Mechanic. This is a Photo Mechanic window. There's nothing going on. I don't see any images. This is kind of how you might see something similar to this the first time you ever open Photo Mechanic. Photo Mechanic is many different things. It's a photo browser. It's a metadata engine. It's a workflow tool. A lot of these descriptions can be a little bit nebulous, but that's because Photo Mechanic does so many different things in terms of managing files and adding and managing the metadata in your files. A typical use of Photo Mechanic, the way a lot of folks use it, is they will go on a shoot, a session, a studio, an event, a wedding, a concert. They'll go take a sporting event, obviously, and then we'll either come back home or in the field in the editing truck, or even on the sidelines, or in the editing in the pit at a concert. And they will plug the card into their laptop or their computer. They will use Photo Mechanic to copy the images off their memory card to the computer, and then use Photo Mechanic to select the winners, or the ones they want to work on, or the ones they want to transfer to the wire. Get rid of the rejects, things that are maybe out of focus or just not up to snuff, and add information, metadata, to those files, like captions, keywords, credit information, copyright, things about the event, descriptions of who's in the photo, that sort of thing, things that the wire services need, things that their editors need, things that their clients needs. So Photo Mechanic is used for those types of things. Photo Mechanic, this is the Photo Mechanic window. Over here we have, up here we have the favorites, but down here is the navigator. This is a view of basically my computer, the computer that Photo Mechanic is installed on. These are all my drives and all my folders, and I can go into here and open up any of these folders. And if I double click on a folder, it opens up that folder and shows me all the images that are in that folder. This area is called the contact sheet. And anytime you click on a folder in here, or click on a memory card, for example, you can see the images that are in that folder. The images here they've all been, you see these color classes, these images have been rated with star ratings and also color classes. And you also notice the checkbox here. That's just called a tag. That's a way, if you just want to set aside a group of images, you can tag a bunch of them instead of selecting a color class or selecting a star rating. So there's really three ways to sort of identify your picks, whether that's giving them a high star rating, whether that's giving them a particular color class, or just by tagging them. How you cull your sessions is really up to you. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Some people like to they go through and they will just tag the ones they know for sure they don't want to use, whether those are out of focus, whether those are exposure issues, color issues, whatnot, or just for aesthetic considerations. They might go through and just tag all the ones they don't want first, get those deleted so they're not kind of in the way. And then they'll go through maybe a few other passes. They might do a pass for content. They might do a pass for importance. They might do anything else. Other people will go through and try to find the winners really first. They will go through and sort of ignore the images that they think might be good enough, but look for the ones that are just no doubters, and they might go that way. That's certainly another way to do it. Yeah, so like I said, Photo Mechanic will then allow you to do that. So if you double click on any one of these images, and here are these thumbnails. Oh, by the way, you can change the size of the thumbnails if you like up here. You can change how they're ordered. There's not a lot of images in this folder, but if you have a lot of images, You can change how they're sorted. You can sort by the capture time, the modification time. File name is always the fastest. And Photomechanic is usually built for speed, so the reason it's defaults to file name is that is the fastest sort. And the reason why it's the fastest, I'll let you know, is because when you're looking, if you're looking at a group of files, you can tell by the file name what the actual file name is. If you look at any of this other information like color, class, rating, modification time, then the program has to go into the metadata of the file, which means sort of like looking into the file for that and finding that information. So, you know, that only may take a few milliseconds, but if you're working with 1,000, 2,000 images, they can be slightly slower. So file name is the fastest. That's why it's the default. You can reverse the file sort here very quickly. And then here, this will show what we're actually looking at. This defeats obviously all the images in the folder. If I select a few images, or if I just click on an image, single click, that's selected. If I hold down the Shift key on either Mac or PC, or Mac or Windows, you can do multi-select. On a Windows machine, I believe it's Control. On a Mac, Mac OS, use the Command key. You can single click and do a multi-select this way. And then if you want to see only the selected images, you come down here and it hides the others. Now this is just, this shows what's shown. It doesn't get rid of those others. So I go back to all, and those are there. And the same thing here, if I want to show, if I only want to show the red images, like images that are tagged red, I can deselect all the other color classes and it will only show the red. If I want to show the red and the green, I'll tell you a little bit. This is another tip that I use. If you hold down the Option key on a Mac, and I believe it's the Alt key on Windows, it will automatically deselect the others. So if I Option click yellow, it deselects everything. I don't have any yellows, but then you can just add in these others. So I have green, and I also want to maybe turn on green and red, like that. And then you can go further. You can go narrow down the star rating. Say I only want 4 stars and above. Let's deselect all these. And there we go. So that's how you would go through sort of identifying and then narrowing down images very basically. Come back here and turn everything back on. Yeah, and then, and then as I said back here, you could also have tagged. As I said, you can tag some of these images with a checkbox. You can either check the checkbox or not, and then you can only show just the tagged images. Like I said, this is another way people will go through and identify. Let me just double check here if anyone has any questions so far. I don't see any questions in the chat. Once again, if you're late joining us, we are doing just a basic review of Photomechanic and what folks use it for, and some of the real basic stuffs about it. If you're getting started, if you've just downloaded Photomechanic on the free trial, or maybe just purchased it and want to know a little bit more about how to get started, that's what we're going over here. And then I will be doing a demonstration of an ingest. I have some sample files from an event, a wedding, that I will go through, and I talk about how I do a call and how some of the mechanisms I use to go through and select the images I like. But as I said, now if you double click any of these thumbnails, it will open up that image in what we call the preview window. You have the full size image here. You can resize this window however you like. You can full screen it. You'll have some of the metadata here. Most of this metadata generally is some of the EXIF data from the file, in terms of the focal length, the ISO. You can customize this image, this info pane to show whatever you want. I've put some other things in here. I have the file size in here. I have the actual folder location of the image, and things like that. You can customize this, and that's in the preferences. And I can get into that when I talk a little bit about preferences. All right, Andy, in the, we have Julie asked option click. I didn't get the option click color code. Sure, I can go back to that real quickly. So when you're looking at these images, and these are in here, and you want to, say I want to narrow down and only view the red, you would click on these colors to deselect them, which you can either click and drag or click either of these like that and get down to the red. But if you're looking at this and you want to get to red quickly, if you hold down Option and click the red, it automatically deselects the other ones quickly. That's what I was talking about. That's Option click on a Mac, and I believe it's Alt click on a Windows machine. And then Andy asks to help me to print deadlines. I have tagged photos in my camera. as I shoot, ingest, and select the tagged, color them, and then review those keepers for the 10 I'm sending on. Works great. Yes, that is a great thing to do. That's being able to tag things in camera is also very, very helpful. I know my camera, I can add star ratings in camera. So if I have an image where which I know it's going to be a winner, maybe I need to get that out to social media quickly, I might tag that with 4 stars in camera or something. And then that should come through when you ingest the image off the camera. You should see that rating already good to go. Another way to do that is also locking images in camera, but we'll get to that when I go over the ingest options. So yeah, back to the preview window here. You can see the other images in the folder and what we call the film strip. And up here, there's some tools about the preview window. You could put the, excuse me, let's go back to this. Put the film strip on the bottom if you want, on the left. You can do a full view, which gets rid of everything else to make that a little bit larger. Go back to the information view. We have some of the metadata here that you can customize. We have what's called a soft crop. And I'll pause here to talk about Photomechanic. Is not what you would call a pixel editor. You don't use Photomechanic to change exposure, swap colors, create black and white images. You would use something, we call that pixel editing, but a lot of other people call it post-processing or have different terms for it. But one thing you can do in Photomechanic is do a soft crop. And what that means is Photomechanic is never going to change your image, especially if you're working with raw files. Photomechanic never wants to actually edit the actual image or make a change to that file, but it will do a soft crop, and I'll demonstrate that here. If I want to say I wanted to zoom in on just this, I can click the crop tool, create a soft crop. What this crop does is create the crop in metadata. It saves the dimensions of this crop in the file. So now if I were to open this file, say in Adobe Lightroom, this crop would then be the crop that you would see in Lightroom. So that's you can do, and if you need to rotate that, you can do it this way, things like that. And then if you want to preview this, if you just click the P key, it will preview what the crop is, or you can just click this view the cropped image here. But P is the fastest way to do that. Arnold asks, is there a variable that for the destination folder? I've renamed my images to include the location and the file name. So you want a variable for the destination folder? I'm not sure what the destination folder would be, but we can talk about that a little bit when I talk about renaming. And I'll get into variables in a general way a little bit more. It's kind of a little bit of an advanced topic, and as we start, we'll get to that. Ken says, do you need to ingest to HDD on the computer, or can you work from an external drive and export to LR without storing files in the computer? This is a great topic, and I want to touch on this right now because this is sort of a basic thing about Photomechanic I would like to make clear to folks. So as I said, most of the most common workflow is to plug in a memory card, copy those images from the memory card to the hard drive. It doesn't have to be a hard drive; it could be the solid state drive, or even I ingest personally I ingest my images to an SSD that's plugged in. So it doesn't have to be the HD, the hard drive on the computer, but it is better to do it on a drive. Now you can look at a card. In fact, I have the SD card is plugged in here. And if I come down here and I want to, excuse me, let's see the SD card. Let's open that up. These are the images that are on the card. Now, these images I'm looking at images on a memory card, and I could go through here and I could start adding color classes, and I could start adding star ratings, and I could start adding metadata. But while these images are on the SD card, first of all, these are my only copies of these cards. My camera might have dual card slots. I might do to backup, so that's fine. But let's just say for this example, these are the only only editions of these images that exist. Anytime you make a change to the file that is on the card, whether that's add metadata, whether that's adding a color class or a rating, adding a crop, a soft crop, whenever you add metadata, it forces the computer to go in and write to the card. And every time you write to the card, there's a little aspect of danger to that, because memory cards are formatted such that they have this file lookup table, sort of a table of contents that tells like the computer where each file, what bit it starts at, that sort of thing. And every time you change that, you kind of risk corrupting the card if that for some reason there's a little glitch in the power or something while you're writing, changing the file size. So the upside of that is We strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you always copy the images from the memory card to your computer, whether that's an external drive, whether that's the computer hard drive, some local spot, so that you can work on those images much more safely and not have to worry about those running into trouble with corrupting the card. Obviously, if you're using the card and you start adding metadata or ratings and adding the information to the card, it's going to change the size of the file, or it's going to create XMP sidecar files. And if your card is, say, you have a 64 gig card and it's almost full, you start adding ratings, it's going to start filling up the card. And if the card becomes full, you're going to get alerts that you can't write to the card, that you can't make changes, and again, like I said, you really jeopardize the card itself from being corrupted. So this is similar to why, I don't know if you've ever seen advice they tell you never to delete images, like single images in camera while you're on a memory card. It's the exact same reason. Anytime you make changes to like the file structure on the card, it's not the most stable thing in the world because of how memory cards are formatted. So that's why we say that. It is possible to do it. I've talked to people who claim that they've been doing this for 10 years and never had a problem. That's awesome for them. I still worry about them. I've talked to other people who say the first time they tried it, they corrupted the card and they lost a whole event, and I hate to hear that. So I would always suggest copying them to an HDD first, if at all possible. So let's close this out here. Back here. So yeah, let's talk about the ingest process. When you plug in that memory card, that is, and then the process of copying those files from the memory card, we call that ingest. We call it ingest because we don't want to use the term import, because it's important to note that these images, while I'm looking at them in Photomechanic, they're not necessarily like in Photomechanic per se. If I'm looking at these Charmy Pena images, by the way, Charmy Pena is a Camerabits ambassador, and she's a wonderful wedding photographer. She was very nice to lend us these images to be used in our demo. But if I'll go over here and I'll right click in the thing, and I say can reveal in Finder. This is the folder here, and these are just the same images that are right here. So it's not, these images are not like in Photomechanic per se. Photomechanic is just looking at that folder. There's no concept of like these images being imported into Photomechanic. Photomechanic is just sort of viewing them where they exist. So that's an important concept to keep in mind. So yeah, once these are on the hard drive. So the process of copying them from my memory card, we call it ingest and not import, just to differentiate from the fact that we're not bringing them into Photomechanic in any sort of proprietary way. So let's. I'm going to call up the ingest dialog. This is, you can set Photomechanic to call this dialog up automatically when you plug in a memory card, and that's in preferences. But we're going to call up that dialog now, and this is going to show all the options in the ingest process. The keyboard shortcut, by the way, is on a PC that would be Control G, on a Mac that's Command G. And I will make a side note that learning keyboard shortcuts is one of the keys to using Photomechanic very fast. When you know the keyboard shortcuts and you don't have to reach for the mouse, or you don't have to go up into the menu structure to select things, it's so much faster. If you want to become a pro and you want to save yourself a lot of time, get to know the keyboard shortcuts. We actually have downloadable PDFs on our downloads page on the website to help you do that. And there's also pages in our documentation site that lists all the keyboard shortcuts. But whenever I use one, I'll try to let you know what I'm using here in the demo. So this is the ingest dialog. These are all the options you have when you are doing the copy process from the SD card or from the memory card to the computer. A lot of stuff on here, so let's go through it. And it's also organized a little bit. I'm going to jump around here because if you think about this conceptually, like the destination folder I've picked here right now, this says it's on this incoming drive is a external SD drive, or SSD that I've plugged in. I'm going to change that to a demo location. So I can come through and I can primary destination. I can pick this out, get to the demo. I can say things like that. You can select where that wants to go. But then in this root folder down here is the further thing. So where there's going to go in that root folder, we're going to have this down here. And right now, what I want to talk about, we're looking at these options. Many of these dialog windows in Photomechanic, I want to point out, have this little thing called the snapshot icon. It looks like a little lightning bolt. We call it the snapshot icon. And that is a way to save any settings in that dialog or any choices that you select to a preset. So I've created a preset for my demonstration. So I'm going to go in here and select that. So I've clicked this Kim Smith Miller ingest. Kim Smith Miller is the photographer who took these wedding photos. She's a friend of Camerbits and also a great photographer. And she let me use this group of raw files from a wedding. So I've done this. So now we see here, it's saved the option. So here's where I'm ingesting these images to. I have, this is actually on my hard drive, a pictures folder and then the demo folder. I have it set to go into that folder and then a folder with a name. So it's going to create this folder here. And then you can have other things in here. And there's also always a preview here to let you know exactly where things are going. So this part, this is the root. This half of it is the sort of the root folder set up here. And this down here is the folder structure that you've configured down here, where I've chosen into dated folder, then folder with name. So that will be here, 2021 909, and then this folder name. There's other options here. You can have just the dated folder. You can have just the named folder. You could have directly into primary and secondary folders. Secondary folder is also up here if you have, say, a backup drive that you want to copy files to. Photomechanic will copy them to 2 places at once. One of the key driving philosophies around Photomechanic is that if we can combine steps into a single step, like 2 things that might take 2 steps elsewhere into a single step, we try to make that possible in Photomechanic. Photomechanic was originally thought up to be used. The original event was the Super Bowl, when our founder Dennis Walker was at the Super Bowl, sort of in one of the early years of digital cameras, and he saw that the agencies that he was working with just really needed something to help them work with files. So that's and when you're working with, say, things like the Super Bowl or sports, being able to find your images quickly and get them to the wire services, by the end of the first quarter or by halftime. Speed is paramount, so Photomechanic is built to save time, save steps, and make you work faster. So like I said, if you want to ingest to one location and a backup location, it will ingest to both if you choose to do that. And then down here, I mentioned before talking about locking photos in camera. So if you want to ingest, normally I would copy the locked and unlocked photos. I'm just copying the whole card. Say I had an image that I knew I had to get handled quickly, maybe a pic of a touchdown or the excuse me, picture of some particular event that I needed to hit either social media or the wire services or get to the client very quickly. I could lock that image in camera and then have Photomechanic only copy the locked photo. So I would run this. I would lock the image in camera. I would run the same ingest as I always do, but I would say cop locked photos only, and would only bring in the locked photo. So if I have a high priority image, that's how I would do it. We'll have that set here. And then this is an important one that it took me a few years actually of using Photomechanic before I got into using the metadata template. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the metadata template. I'm going to open this template in just a minute, but I want to warn you first because there's going to be a lot of options and it's a big dialogue. So before I open it, I want to talk a little bit about it. So this is the metadata IPTC template. So metadata is just information about the image, things like I said, caption, keywords, location, a whole host of other types of information that you can tag into the image. IPTC is the sort of Photojournalism Telecommunications Council, sort of an international standards group for digital, like photojournalism. They came up with the scheme of metadata, whether that's where to put the credit information, where to put the caption, where to put keywords. They were the group that kind of defined all this, so that's why we call it the IPTC template. You don't need to know that if you're not actually, even if you're still a photojournalist, you don't really need to know that. But because Photomechanic has been doing this for 20 years, a lot of People who have been doing this a lot really know that as IPTC data, so that's why that's in there. I mean, we have this, there's a choice here to use local template or use global template. I want to explain what the differences between those are. So I'm going to be copying these images from a memory card to my computer, and I want to apply some metadata to them. Now, generally, when you're using Photomechanic and you open the metadata IPTC template, and you open it up, you add some metadata, and you apply it to some images, and then you close it, that template will remember those values the next time you open it. So the next, if you're adding metadata or images to like a group of images, you apply it, then you open it up later, it's going to remember the same information that was in there last time to obviously save some time. But because I'm doing this as at the opening step, which is like, I'm going to use the template to apply some very general credit information about the photographer. I don't want that to always be there, so we call this as the local. Local just means almost, you would think of that as like a one-time use thing. So that if I use the local template, it means that the next time I open this later on in the process, it's not going to reuse that image. You're not going to reuse that information, excuse me. So yeah, it can be a little bit confusing to know the difference. So just think of local as one time and global as where it will remember the information that you folded in there. So I'm going to open this up. And this is the information that's going to be tagged into these images while I am copying them from the memory card. And so I've gone in here and filled out, there's a little bit of a description, just a general thing. Kim Smith Miller, as I said, was a photographer. Some information about her. So keywords for this particular wedding. Here's her information. Her, source, credit information. Her rights usage terms. And once again, I want to point out this snapshot icon down here, the presets. So I have a lot of these. So I have one for myself. This is the information for me. I might not have anything, but I might definitely have my copyright here and my credit information. But I can come in here and I've saved the one for Kim Smith Miller, all her stuff. So it has all this stuff. So if you have different things, say you have one client that definitely wants to not have a lot of this information in there, you can have a preset for them. If you're doing something personal and you want your own information in there, just create a bunch of these presets. You just go through, you fill out the dialogue. You would click save and it would save that, and it would ask you what you want to name it. And then if you want to edit it, if I made a change to this but wanted to save Kim Smith Miller's, I would go over to save, and then I would reselect Kim Smith Miller, and then it would overwrite the one. So if I want to make changes to that, but I don't want to do that now, so we'll cancel. But as you can see, I have a lot of things in here. So later on, I might be adding more keywords, say, photos of the bride or photos of the family. If I called up the metadata template, I wouldn't want to have all this stuff still in there. So that's why I'm using the local template here, and I use the global later. And then all the things about the event location we have up here. So as you can see, there's a lot of choices of what type of metadata to put in your images. This dialog can get very large, but it can also be customized. I want to point that out. When I do things personally, I might customize this dialog or this IPTC template to never use anything about like models, property, and artwork. If I never use that, I can hide this. I can make this dialog much simpler or much smaller, so that everything is sort of above the fold and there's no scrolling. So if you want to, to help you work faster, we allow you to customize this. A lot of time, being fast at something, really anything in life, being fast at something means going slow in the beginning, whether that's learning shortcuts, whether that's doing prep work, preparation, getting to know things. If you put in more work in the beginning, you'll find yourself faster at the end. And this is one example of that. Julie asks, the metadata input shows up in Photoshop also correct? Yes. Because this is the, as I said, the IPTC was the international standards body that came up with this. Many other softwares use the exact same structure. Photoshop is one. Capture One also does. Lightroom, being Adobe, obviously also does. So you'll find these things. So if I add these keywords in Photomechanic, and then I bring them into Lightroom, say, or Capture One, those keywords will still be there. That's kind of And we do our very, very best to try and make sure to work smoothly with a lot of the pixel editing programs. And actually, I'll go over that a little bit when I get to that step where I show about moving images into Photoshop. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we'll close that template here. We have everything. I can rename the ingested photos if I want to. We're not going to do that for this step, but you could do that. And then I'm going to have it open the contact sheet during the ingest because I want to show the demonstration. There's other options down here. You have the option to erase the source disk after ingest. I personally never do that because just in case something goes wrong, I don't want to erase those images. But if you need to do that quickly, unmount the source disk after ingest. This I will frequently use, especially if I need to get back out back into the field to take some more images. You would check this, and that way you don't have to go through the eject process to eject the card before you're done. So that's something. Oh, and while I'm pointing that out, there's also this option, incremental ingest, copy new photos only. In fact, normally I would check this. In fact, let's check that now. And let me talk a little bit about what this does. Incremental ingest means that if I go and I take 50 shots of the first quarter, and I come back to, I pop it into my laptop and I ingest those 50 images, I don't want to take the step of erasing the disk or reformatting it after I pop it into my camera. If I have incremental ingest, I leave those 50 images on the card. I go shoot the second quarter, get another 50 images, come back to Photo Mechanic. As long as the incremental ingest was checked for the first ingest, it will sort of ignore those older photos and only ingest the new photos. So it will only bring in the second. That way I don't have to worry about like keeping my camera or keeping my memory card formatted each time. Photo Mechanic will kind of figure out that I've already ingested those old folders. So that's a very important option to keep in mind. All right, real quickly, how do you customize? I will talk about how to customize the metadata window a little bit after this when we get into that, after I do the ingest. And we also have a question, IPTC works with WordPress. That's a great question. We get a lot of questions about how to get things to show up in WordPress. The thing with WordPress is there's so many different plugins and web galleries that you use. It's really up to the gallery itself. If you have a gallery on WordPress, it's up to that plugin to select what metadata you want to show. So many of the gallery plugins I've had experience with do have an option to say, show the caption that comes through, and that would be the most popular ones that I'm aware of do use the IPTC metadata to show that, but it really can change depending on what gallery plugin you're using. You can talk to if the gallery plugin you're using doesn't show it, talk to make a request from the developer that wrote it, and they can do that. But that's we make the IPTC data. It's in the files. It's there for any other program to use if they want it. And a lot of those WordPress plugins actually do use it. So hopefully that helps. But like I said, I can't, without talking about specific plugins, I can't really talk about it more. And I don't have a ton of experience with a lot of the WordPress gallery plugins. But the ones that I have used do have that option, and it would come from the IPTC data. But okay, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. I should note that this video, if you come back to this same URL after we're done here, this video will be available to watch. Go back and later. So if you miss something, you can go back and watch it later, and hopefully I will explain it enough so that if you watch it 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 12 times, you'll be able to understand all this gobbledygook I'm throwing at you. So without further ado, I'm going to start at ingest, and actually because I did the incremental ingest and I've actually ingested this file before, it actually didn't ingest. So I'm going to go back in, and that's why I turned this off, because I actually had done this before. That's why I had turned that off. I forgot about that. Because I had ingested this card, it didn't actually ingest anything, but we'll turn that off, and we'll now double check all these things, and we'll ingest it again. And here we go. So these are raw files coming in from a Nikon camera, and they're coming in. You see the status down here in the task. They're coming in batches. And now for a cull, if I were to cull this event myself, what I do is I would, first of all, before I do this, I'm going to show you something in preferences that I find very important in culling. So to get to photo mechanic preferences, it's Command comma or on a Mac or Control comma on a Windows machine. And here's the preferences, and I want to show you just two things that are going to make culling very quickly for you. First is in the preferences for the preview window. You'll see down here, if you're looking at this on a Mac, all the different areas of preferences are in this drop down here. If you're looking on a Windows machine, they're tabs, but it's the same options in both. So under the preferences for the preview window, I want to show this automatically advance to next photo when any of these things are changed. What this means is when I add a color class or I add a rating, it automatically moves to the next photo. This is another time-saving step. So I have that checked. And then go back into preferences. In the preferences under accessibility, there's the single key shortcuts. This means that if I'm looking at an image in the preview window and I just press a number key, 0 through 5, it's going to set the star rating. If I wanted that to set the color class, I would select here. I prefer star rating, so I'm going to set that to rating. That just means that when I go into culling, it's going to make culling much quicker just if I have my hand on the number key. So I just wanted to show you a little bit about that. So those are in preferences. Again, once again, preview window preferences for this and accessibility for the single key. And we'll go, okay. So now I'm going to go through a cull, how I might do it. I call up the preview window. And now I'll just have one hand on the number keys. And the way my keyboard is set up, I'm going to have my fingers on the number keys and my thumb will be on the arrow keys to go back if I want to make a change. But I'll go through here and I'm like, okay, this is a really nice photo. Maybe a little underexposed. I can look at the histogram. It looks pretty good. The shadows aren't too blocked, so that definitely could be saved in post. So I'm gonna give that a 3. I just press the 3 on the number key and it automatically moves to the next one. When I do culling, I really go on my gut feeling. I will go through and make instant judges. If I don't like an image instantly, I might move on from it, even though it could be saved later. So I might take another pass. But for my first pass, I go on sort of my first gut reaction. This maybe isn't centered much, so maybe I'll give that a 2. But I will go through. This is okay. That's a little bit better. A 3. And you go through and you can start making these decisions. And I don't want to talk you through each decision, but you can start going through here and like, okay, yes, I like that. Maybe that's a 2. Maybe that's a 1. A lot of motion blur there. I don't want motion blur this time. Go through. And as you can see, these are Nikon RAW files. And Photo Mechanic, because it doesn't have to do pixel editing, it can flip back. In fact, I'm just going to go to the arrow keys now, and I can just go through from images very quickly. Photo Mechanic doesn't have to prepare the image for pixel editing, therefore it doesn't have to render the RAW file. And that's what makes it faster. And this is sort of, if you asked a lot of people the one reason why they use Photo Mechanic, it's that they can go through 300 RAW files this quickly. You mean if I just held on the key, like this is how fast it's going. Being able to save the second and a half or half a second in each image, if you're talking about 500 images, that's 500 seconds. You're talking about 10 minutes. Like it saves you so much time being able to do this first. Do your culling in Photo Mechanic first before you take things into Lightroom. That's sort of if you ask people like the one main reason they might use Photo Mechanic, you'll hear this a lot. So I'll go through here. And like I said, if I see something and I like this, oh wait, no, that looked out of, I can just go back with the arrow key, say, okay, maybe that's actually a 1 because that is a little bit out of focus. That's good. So I can go through these, maybe go back again. And go through and make these and go through the shoot, and you can get to it. Maybe I like this. Maybe that's a 5-star. Oh, maybe that's not as good. Let's put this as a 3. This is a 5. Oh, maybe I want to compare them. So I want to show the 2 photos. I can go back and so what did I want to compare these 2? So if I wanted to compare 2, and I might even I can go to the full screen just to see these side by side. If I want to know which one I actually like better, you can do that. Go back here to only have the one image. So we'll go that, and then we'll go back to the here just to think. And as we're going through here, so let's so we'll go through that, and so I could do this for the entire take, but I think that's good enough for now to show you a little bit about it. I'll hit the escape key to get back to the contact sheet. Once again, a keyboard shortcut's usually faster. Now we have all these images here, which I've rated on these stars, and I might now say, okay, I think my winners, the ones that I'm going to actually work with, are 3 stars and above. deselect those. These here are the ones from here are sort of my keepers, are the ones I actually want to work on. Now from here, some things I might do. If I hadn't already added metadata to the images, I might do that now. I might now, because these are keepers, add like a special keyword for keepers. I could do that. I could control or Command A to select all and open up the metadata template again. So since I used the local one before, here's the global, and this is now free for me to put my own stuff in. This is actually some older stuff, but I could clear this out. Clear the whole thing, and I can now I could add these if I wanted to add the keeper. A note about these check marks. So if the checkbox is checked, it means it will apply that field. And if there's this checkbox next to a plus sign, this means append whatever's in this field to whatever exists. If this is unchecked, it will overwrite. So that's what that is. So if I wanted to append, keeper to some of these, let's go ahead and do that. We'll apply that to this images. Now all those images, if I call them up and I look at the keywords, here's the keywords from the first metadata template, and then it also has keeper. That's just an example there. So, and then as I said, if I now open up the metadata template again, this is still in their keeper because this is the global. Anything I put in here is now going to be remembered for the next time you use it. If you want to overwrite it, I could save this. I could create a whole template just for adding the keyword keeper. It's not uncommon to create presets just to add a single keyword that you can get in there quickly. But like I said, you can do anything in there. So we'll close that. And now we'll talk about, let me just check the questions here. My question was referring to renaming during ingest. My workflow involves copying my files to my HD and then rename the files using the name of the folder, such as New York in the original file name. I can talk about that a little bit. Let's call up that ingest dialog again and renaming the ingested photos. You mentioned variables, and I guess now's the time we'll talk about variables. Variables in Photomechanic are sort of they're terms within curly brackets that refer to, it's sort of like a placeholder for metadata that's already in the image, whether that's EXIF data, like the date or the time, the frame number. In fact, I'm going to call up this dialog to show all the different variables that are available in Photomechanic, and there are a lot of them. There's ones about the camera, whatever the brightness was set at, whatever the color class was. There's a lot of things in here. I don't even know what all these do because there are so many of them. And not every camera will write this information. So some of these might be a little bit specific to certain camera models or camera makers. So there's a focus mode. But as you can see, there is a folder for the image. So the current context sheet, so this variable folder would, if you had this image in a folder called demo and you used the variable called folder, it would insert demo wherever whatever it came across that variable. So yes, you can use variables to rename images. If you're talking about adding folder names in camera while you're ingesting the files, I believe that will still work. But I haven't tried that myself, so I can't tell for sure. Obviously, you might want to try that out. But there is a variable for folder. Give it a try and see if that does exactly what you expected. I expect it will, but I wouldn't be surprised if it worked fine. But give it a try. So as you can see, this is something I use often. I use the variable for date sort, and then I have the original frame number. So as you can see, these are, in fact, I'm going to call up the rename dialog right here, just so I can show how this actually works. So I'm going to call up the rename dialog, which is Command M on a Mac or Control M on a PC. Here's the rename, and let's use that same thing. We'll say date sort, and we'll underscore, and then we'll use frame. Right, so now it's going to say here's DSC 0655. It's now going to have the date, and that's the date that it pulls from the thing, and then it's going to use whatever the camera file name, the frame in the file. I think I may have renamed these files a little haphazardly in the past, so that's why these numbers aren't matched up. If you were coming these straight from the camera, usually those numbers would match up because that's the frame. The camera will usually put the frame number in there. I think I once I had to rename these files, so that's why that doesn't match up, unfortunately. But that's the frame number. So this, if I rename these, this will put in there. And then I also had the credit. I could actually throw something like that as well in. So maybe say I want like my, and then you can type something like, you don't have to, you're not limited. So if I just wanted to put my initials or Kim Smith Miller's initials, or you can even have one say the credit field. And here we go, Kim Smith Miller Photography. So in other words, you could create this, and then again, you can save this, as I've certainly done. I've done you could have a rename scheme that you save here that might have this, and then so if you're working with say a magazine that needs your name in the file name, you could save that to use for that. Or if you're, whatever, however you want to do, if you need something for different clients, that can be saved. But and then there's the preview. Very important. There's no way to really undo a file rename. So definitely come down here and check. It's going to tell you, show you sort of examples of what's going to happen. Where this will become that. We'll have the date, the number, and the thing there. Definitely check that. And then if you want to add a sequence, say if you just wanted to say wedding pics, and then you might say put the sequence in there. And then set the sequence variable. We're gonna, if we were doing this, we'd start at 0 to 1. Okay, and then it will just kind of give them all a number so that you didn't have to like hand number those. So that's what the sequence variable is for. We'll cancel that. But that's how variables work in renaming. So let's in fact let's do that with the folder name. But let's call it again. So maybe I wanted to say, so I have this in the Taya Gabe wedding folder. So put this in the folder, as you can see, and then maybe we'll add a sequence. So yeah, it would have the folder name would be added into the file name. Hopefully that answers your question, Arnold. I hope so. This should work. Like I said, if you did this on ingest, it would take the folder. I believe the folder that's on the camera card itself, which might be something like DCIM or depending. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the folder will give you as you're ingesting from a memory card. I know some cameras allow you to create folders in camera, and you could do some amazing things with the folder that way. I know Jeff Vogan is another Camera Bits ambassador who shoots a lot of sports, including high school sports, and he will say he's shooting a swim meet with 50 different students. He will have different folder for every student, and he will just, as one student comes up, they will look for the name in the list and say, I'm folder number 103. He'll put that in 103, and then when he does his ingest, he can have all the files renamed and tagged with the like the student's name in the metadata, all based on the folder. It's very, very interesting. There's another video if you search YouTube for like Jeff Vogan photo mechanic, you can find that video where he talks about it. It's very, very fascinating. But yeah, that's using a variable in an ingest. I hope that answered your question. But the last thing I wanted to talk about here, I know we're getting a little past 12 o'clock here on the West Coast. I'm happy to keep going, but like I said, if you have to run, come back and check this video out at the same URL. You'll be able to review it later. How I would actually want to now take these into another program for doing my post-processing. I'm going to use Photoshop just because I've gotten into the habit. I used to be a heavy Lightroom user. I've started using Photoshop and then Camera Raw in Photoshop. I just find it faster, but a lot of these same things will work in Lightroom as well. The very fastest way or the easiest way I found, I do a Command A, and I can just drag these, and I can drag these over to Photoshop. Normally I would have this open, but it wasn't open, but it should open pretty quickly. And because these are raw files, now it's going to open up in Camera Raw first, and as they come in here, and then you can do some Camera Raw things. As you can see now, as I'm clicking on these, yeah, so you can go through that. But the fastest way to do that is just go back to Photo Mechanic here. Is just drag them over. You can also configure this. Now, if I did on my Mac, I believe Command E, I believe will do the same thing. I believe it'll first ask you if you want to edit them all. Command E is now gonna, yep, that's gonna open up Photoshop. If you're working with say if I just wanted one, if I just hit the E key, it's gonna take whatever my default image editor is for that file type and open that up. do done there. That's another. I know one thing is that so if I did these and I was open these in the editor on my system was Lightroom. If I did the Command E to open all these, we have heard reports that the way Lightroom is handling images sent past to it through what this does is if I hit this and if I hit Command E, it's basically simulating a drag and drop, and Lightroom can handle drag and drops differently. And they seem to change it like every other time they update Lightroom, so that can be a little bit troublesome. That's why doing a physical drag and drop always seems to be the fastest. So I just do that, comes over here, and they all come in. So that's just like how I would do that, and then do this one. Wanted to say, as you can see down here, here's the star rating. It's got the 5 stars. That's already come through. If I went to some of the other metadata, you would see the keywords in there as well. So yeah, that's, oh, and I want to do, so I'm going to go open up preferences again and show something. This is sort of almost a hidden feature. It's not really labeled that clearly in Photomechanic, but if you go under the preferences for launching, this is sort of launching other programs. And so I said, I have Photoshop here. That's the default application for editing photos. That's set it here. You can have a different one for movies if you want. You can set it to let the Finder open the files. I have it set to the default application. But down here it says assign specific editing applications for each file type. But what you can also do, click Set here, and you can have a different file type. So if you want JPEGs to open in Photoshop, but raw files to open in, whatever your Fuji editor or something, you can do that. But down here we have the custom editors. And if you add a different custom editor in here, like I have one for Lightroom Classic, I've done my custom editor number 6. So I put this in the launching preferences. We'll do that apply. And I'll show you what that allows me to do. We'll cancel out of here. So say there's an image here, and if I right click on this, it says edit photo with, and now it has all those different custom editors that I've customized. And there's one for Lightroom Classic. So if you have a different, number of different editors and you want to decide which one you want to use within Photomechanic, I can go with the default Photoshop. I could go Lightroom Classic. I don't remember the last time I've updated my Lightroom Classic catalog, so if I did that, it might give me a warning. I have to update a catalog, and that would take a long time, so I'm not going to do that. But you can add a number of different pixel editors in that dialog to be able to excuse me, to be able to sort of fine-tune how you go into post-processing. And then from there, you might edit those images. If you export them in your pixel editing, you might send them to another file folder. And then you can use Photomechanic. The final thing for people who use Photomechanic is to send files off to other locations. And I will talk about the uploader dialog here. I might go into... So we can first, FTP is the basic, but the uploader is here, and it will take all these images, and I have this set to Twitter. If I wanted to tweet, obviously I'm not going to tweet all 45 photos or 25 photos, but you can set this to an FTP site. If you have something for there, you can set an FTP site. And I want to point out something very important here as well, something from my own experience when I was shooting for magazines in Los Angeles. They would give me a whole thing where it said, okay, we need files at this particular pixel dimension with this exact file naming structure and FTP to this site. And I would, back in the old days, before I learned Photomechanic, I would go through in Photoshop, I would go and save copies of my original images, my full-size images at the pixel things. Then I would go back into Finder and I would rename them. Photomechanic lets you do all that resaving right here in the thing. So in the uploader. So I can have this set to fit a box. Say I might want them 1200 pixels on the long side. I might want to then rename them as the weekly, and then I might have to put maybe my name in there, or again you could use the variable for the credit, right? So that's I can have them rename, and what Photomechanic will do is it will create copies, resize to this thing with their own special name, send them off to the FTP server, and then it doesn't keep it unless I wanted to save a copy, which I don't know, for some reason, but it won't save them. So in other words, you could use the uploader to create the copies with the special file name, send them to the FTP site or the client or whatever you want to do, and it doesn't save them on your computer. So you don't, like I used to end up having like 4 different copies of different images and going back and finding them later. It was such a hassle, and I really wish I had gotten into Photo Mechanic earlier, because being able to do this stuff on the fly in the exact same step as the upload, and then not have to create copies myself. And if you wanted to even add a watermark, you can do that. Add a watermark in here. You can have the copyright. There's a lot of different options in here as how to create a watermark. So you could create watermarked copies to send to someone, and you wouldn't have to keep those. Very, very helpful. It really made my own workflow so much more efficient. So that's just an example of using the file uploader. So that's another big reason why people use Photo Mechanic, is the file uploader. We have presets or things in here for. I've gone back to Flickr after I got out of Instagram. I don't know what you're using. Instagram doesn't yet allow uploading from a desktop, so that's not in here. But Photo Shelter, love Photo Shelter. I have a Photo Shelter site that's here. We have other things. If you have an Amazon S3 storage thing. A lot of things up here. SmugMug. Like I said, we also have Twitter. I believe at the actual moment, our upload to Twitter is down, so I'm not going to show that, but you can do that in here. And just to note that Twitter removes all the XF and IPTC data, so just be careful when you upload images to Twitter. All that, so if you've tagged credit information, it's not going to be there. But that's it. I know, like I said, I threw a lot of image information at you. This was sort of the basic uses of Photo Mechanic. I know there's a lot more to cover. We could do, there's a lot more videos on our site. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have a lot of tutorials. Our customer service site is docs, that's docs.canvas.com. There's a lot of tutorials and help articles there. Including the videos are also there in help articles. They're embedded into help articles. So that might be the best place to start. You can also call. We have a free tech support. It is an Oregon number, but if you call us during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, on the West Coast, we're located in Oregon. You can talk to. There's not a tough phone tree. Just give us a call. I think you might have to press 2 for technical support, but you'll be able to talk to a human being, and you can just ask them. Say, I want to rename my files this way. How do I do it? I want to copy images. Like, is there a variable for, time? Can I format the time variables? Questions like that. You'll talk to a human being that we're happy to answer. We take our customer support seriously. We have real people waiting to chat with you. So, and we also offer that support even if you're on a free trial. You don't have to have a current license of Photo Mechanic. If you're using Photo Mechanic for a client, it's their license. Don't worry. As long as you're using Photo Mechanic, we're happy to help if we can. With that, I do these getting started webinars every 2 weeks. So you could watch this one. If you have other questions you want to ask next time, certainly come back. If we want to focus on a different aspect, we can do that. I'll be back in 2 weeks, but most of the questions can be answered by our tech support staff faster than that anyway, so you might want to try that. But I hope that helped. I hope you use Photo Mechanic and save time. We've heard folks say that it's given them their weekends back. They used to spend 8 to 12 hours culling, especially after weddings, a lot of high volume stuff. They've gotten it down to maybe 2-3 hours. Saving 10 hours in a weekend is a pretty big thing. Some people say it's life changing. I tend to agree. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me here on this Thursday. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can use Photo Mechanic to speed yourself up. Other than that, have a good one, and we'll see you next time, or we'll see you out there on the web, or hopefully in the field. Hopefully you're out taking pictures at events, and maybe we'll run into each other. Cheers, all.